Welcome back to my mini-series on what to expect at Army Basic Training in 2021 amidst the coronavirus pandemic. And in this episode, I'm going to break down to you knee-deep into the all-new or still relatively new yellow phase with updates. So stay tuned. Here we go! What's up, everybody? Welcome back here to TEAMSWARTZ, and if this is your first time here, welcome to my channel. Here I post a ton of Army basic training tips, recruiting, and other Army-related videos to include going live weekly to address your most desired questions and concerns. With that being said, once you clear the reception and processing at the reception battalion, you will move on to your next and first phase of Army basic training. COVID came in here like Miley Cyrus and a wrecking ball, completely turning the Army upside down. Basically, we got caught with our pants down. We didn't know how to react. We were reactive versus being proactive. It messed up everywhere in the training environment to include the recruiting process. So if you essentially were lucky or fortunate enough to ship off to Army basic training at the beginning of COVID in like March, April, May of 2020, if you came from a hot zone, you would essentially go straight into quarantine, and the original intent was 2 weeks. Now, majority of the soldiers who shipped off were in quarantine for over 30 days. Some expressed, well, quite a few actually, expressed being in quarantine upwards to like 12 to 16 weeks. This in and of itself caused a lot of pay issues. It's non-training period, so it was a waste of money to have soldiers sitting around doing absolutely nothing, to include increasing discharge requests of trainees who simply, quite frankly, did not want to deal with the COVID restrictions. So the Army, as you know, is always rolling along. So they had to adapt, adjust, and overcome, created, developed, and implemented the all-new yellow phase around June of 2020. I myself experienced it myself at the United States Army Drill Sergeant Academy. Yellow phase, or also known as C1, C2, depending on where you ship out to Army basic training, essentially it's the same thing. It is called or referred to as controlled monitoring, which is essentially a form of self-quarantine. The difference between beginning of COVID to the all-new yellow phase is that with the yellow phase, your training starts immediately and you're back to your 10 weeks of basic training. Versus at the beginning of COVID, where you would go into quarantine for 2+ weeks, then in process at the reception battalion, and then begin your basic training experience. So by implementing the all-new yellow phase, saves the government lots of money, it helps out with the mental stress of the trainees and the training environment, and gets training started immediately. Almost as close to business as usual, obviously with COVID restrictions in place. So let's talk about isolation and quarantine risks while you're at Army basic training, OSA or AIT, or anywhere throughout the initial entry training. Understand that at any point throughout your initial entry training, to include this here yellow phase, if you express signs or symptoms, or we witness signs or symptoms, or get caught either testing positive or in close proximity of someone else who tests positive for COVID, you will go into quarantine for at least 2 weeks. Understand that by going into isolation or quarantine for 2 weeks is going to cause you to miss a basic training graduation requirement, thus getting you recycled to the earliest part of your current phase. So for example, let's say for argument's sake, you're at the end of your red phase and you go into isolation or quarantine. As you know, red phase is a little over 2 weeks long, so with that being said, if you go into isolation or quarantine, they will at minimum put you at the beginning of red phase at best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you'll go back to day 0, which is the beginning of yellow phase. If you go to isolation or quarantine, you will have 24/7 around-the-clock medical care and access to a medical professional throughout your time and stay at the isolation or quarantine ward or facility. You will have activities, whether it's movies, books, magazines, so on and so forth. You will even have access, most of the time, unless a trainee messes it up for the rest of y'all, have access to your cell phones at that time. You will also be able to conduct PT on your own or physical training on your own outside of that facility. Out of everyone who ships out to Army basic training, about 4% will test positive or in close proximity of someone else who tests positive for COVID. Of that 4% who test positive, about 2% actually show signs or symptoms. The other 98% have no signs or symptoms, and they're essentially asymptomatic. No one has ever died in a training environment due to COVID or throughout the Army that we're aware of, okay? With that also being said, Anyone who's gone to the hospital in the training environment has been returned back to the training site within 24 hours. Although some locations are restricting mail for obvious reasons, because if in the best case scenario, you're only in quarantine or isolation for 2 weeks, pre-COVID, mail took 2+ weeks. Now with COVID restrictions and everything else that's going on, it takes 3+ weeks. So if you have a loved one or if you end up in isolation or quarantine, don't request any mail to be sent there, just because it's either gonna get lost or it's gonna take exponentially longer to get to you. Isolation and quarantine, unfortunately, is going to be extremely boring. You're gonna be in a room with one other battle buddy, maintaining social distancing and wearing a mask all the time. You'll get 3 square meals per day, and you'll get snacks and all that good stuff. They'll take good care of you while you're in isolation and quarantine. Again, it's extremely boring, but necessary. So let's talk about COVID restrictions, protocol, masks, and sanitization, okay? Masks will be worn all day, every day, unless otherwise directed to do so. You will be provided at least 1 mask per day. If it breaks, hopefully you got a backup mask, because that's what you get, okay? 1 mask per day. I suggest that you bring 2 to 5 hand washable masks that you can wash on a daily basis if needed. So you'll wear one for the morning. After PT, if you sweat it out, you can swap it out to a dry one. Or if you ever get smoked or receive corrective training, always have extra masks or gaiters. They have to be solid in color. I suggest that it's either black, brown, or olive green. White is authorized, but in my personal opinion, my pet peeve, don't get a white mask. It literally looks like you're walking around with a diaper on your face. You could also wear a gaiter. You could purchase them at the troop exchange when going through the reception battalion. While conducting physical training, you will have to wear your masks. However, your drill sergeants may authorize during certain exercises to remove your mask during the exercise, but as soon as you complete that exercise, your mask goes back on. Also note that when in training and throughout the Army, your mask is either all the way on or all the way off. Unless you're doing a physical exerting exercise, you are required to wear your mask. So throughout your time in the training environment, this is considered a protective bubble or a protective net, where they limit possible exposure and possible spread of COVID. So with that being said, you are not authorized to meet with anyone outside of the training environment, outside of your drill sergeants, cadre, and other DoD civilians contracted to facilitate your training. In doing so, if you do meet with somebody, doesn't matter if they're another military member, if they have a CAT card to get on base, or even if they live on post, if caught meeting with somebody face-to-face outside of the training environment for whatever reason, you could face UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, punitive measures. You could be punished by military law, essentially. So don't do it. All throughout basic training, more so during yellow phase, you will maintain social distancing of 6 feet unless told otherwise. Multiple times throughout the day, you will sanitize your barracks, the company area, the common areas, and any equipment that's utilized throughout your day. You will wash hands or use hand sanitizer as often as possible throughout this phase and throughout your basic training experience. Every other sink, toilet, urinal, and shower will be taped off to maintain physical distancing, limiting the exposure of COVID. Most training installations at this time will, for the controlled monitoring period, whether it's yellow phase, C1, C2, wherever you're at, the bays where you sleep at in the barracks are going to be held at 50% capacity, skipping every other bunk. And with that being said, once you pass controlled monitoring, they will consolidate your platoon into 1 bay, alternating heads on the bunk. So on the bottom bunk, the head will be on the left side, and then the top bunk on the right side, and on the next bunk, it'll be the bottom bunk on the opposite side of the guy next to you, so on and so forth. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. Plan on eating a lot, and I mean a ton, of MREs during this time frame. MREs are meals ready to eat, which is basically in a bag. I'll show a picture on the screen somewhere here. But with that being said, you are authorized and required to eat at least 1 hot meal per day. So during controlled monitoring, while you're essentially self-quarantining, right, you're not going to be authorized to go to the chow hall or the defect bay to eat in a dining facility. So they're going to provide to you hot A's, and you'll receive them all throughout your training environment. Essentially, it's cooked hot meals placed in bins that will be served to you buffet style. You'll receive 1 to 3 temperature checks per day and ask you questions and looking for signs and symptoms of COVID. Again, if you are displaying any signs or symptoms of COVID or express signs or symptoms of COVID, you're going to go into isolation or quarantine, as previously described. During your time of controlled monitoring, you are restricted to your barracks in your immediate company area. You cannot cross-contaminate by going into other company areas and possibly spread COVID during this time frame. At the end of your controlled monitoring, you will be given and provided a second COVID test, which is done via the nasal swab where it feels like it's tickling your brain. It's not painful, but it's not comfortable either. You'll see what I mean. And providing that you pass that, you will move on to your next phase, which is your red phase of basic training. We get it. We understand that physical distancing of 6 feet and wearing your masks and sanitizing and hand sanitizer and all the restrictions that come along with COVID are extremely annoying, but us drills are just as frustrated and annoyed as you. And you're gonna be even more annoyed when we're like, 6 feet, Pry! I said 6 feet! Right? Something along those lines. So let's talk about phone privileges. What could you expect about utilizing your personal cell phone? I definitely highly suggest that you bring your cell phone with you, but understand that throughout your basic training or OSA experience, phones are a privilege. They are not a right, okay? So it's up to your drill sergeant and their leadership to provide you that privilege if warranted. You will get a scripted phone call, usually within the first 72 hours of reporting to basic training of your yellow phase, which we'll cover about what to expect in a moment here. I'm here, I love you, I gotta go, bye. That's it. And then maybe one phone call at the very end. Hey mom, dad, whatever, loved one, spouse. Graduation is gonna be on this day here. It's gonna be done via live stream on Facebook, so on and so forth. I'm gonna send you the information. I hope to see you online, blah, blah, blah. And that's it. Now, typically you would receive, as long as you guys are performing well, every time you phase up into a new phase during Army basic training. But some locations, due to COVID, are implementing a 5 to 30-minute phone call almost every Sunday. I'm against that. I don't think that phones should be authorized, especially for those who are homesick and, especially if they're like getting on track and focused on the training versus, dwelling on missing their family and so on and so forth. This could derail their mental toughness and focus. So I'm against the cell phone usage, but, it's neither here nor there. But just know what to expect. So let's talk about first things first. Your drill sergeant is going to pick you up from the reception battalion and either march you to your basic training site or transport you through via bus or cattle trucks or whatnot. But they'll pick you up and bring you to the barracks. And the first thing that they're gonna knock out is your shakedown. They're gonna be checking for contraband and to make sure that you have all your equipment needed and uniforms to complete successfully Army basic training. If caught with contraband that you didn't give up during the moment of truth and your original shakedown at the reception battalion, you will be punished, possibly in accordance with the UCMJ military law, or at the very least, negatively counseled and put into your file. If you lose something that was issued to you from CIF or uniforms or anything that was issued to you and it's needed for Army basic training, you will receive what we call statement of charges. What that means is, however much that item costs, it will be deducted from your pay. So do not fall victim of five-finger discount. Make sure that your stuff is locked up and accounted for. You will be introduced to your unit leadership to include your drill sergeants, the senior drill sergeants, the first sergeant, and the company commander, and along with maybe some more senior leadership. They will talk to you about the battle buddy system. Do not talk to a drill sergeant without your battle buddy. The battle buddy system is there for your protection and the drill sergeant's protection as well. With that being said, the battle buddy system consists of either a male and a male, or a female and a female, or 2 males and 1 female, or 2 females and 1 male. That's the way it goes. It's not male and female. Doesn't work that way. Don't get caught. At this point, you will receive various blocks of instruction on the position of attention, the positions while at the halt, and the hand salute. Your first few days of Army basic training is a lot of administrative work, counselings, and setting up your barracks, your bays, and your bunks. Understand that once you are taught something and the drill sergeant says, "Are there any questions?" See none, hear none, experts. From that point forward, you are now held accountable for what was just taught to you, and if you fail to meet this standard, you will receive corrective training. You will quickly learn throughout your basic training experience that attention to detail and teamwork is the key. The quicker you guys fall in line and work together and pay attention to the little things, because we're going to be telling you exactly how we want things done. And if you fail to deliver, corrective training. So the quicker you guys work together, the smoother and easier basic training will be. So either you get smarter or plan on getting stronger. While the administrative work is getting done the first few days of your basic training experience, your drill sergeants are going to set up one wall locker and one set of bunks and show you how everything's supposed to look, dress right dress, in accordance with your local SOP at Army Basic Training. They will give you a diagram, but they're going to show you through demonstration exactly what it is supposed to look right. The trainees are in the immediate area where the drill sergeant is setting up the wall locker, and the bunks will have to teach the other trainees within your platoon to execute properly. Everyone should look right. Dress right dress. Everyone's the same. And you better follow the SOP. You're probably going to receive a time hack, and if you fail to meet that time hack to knock out your wall locker setup and your bunks, plan on getting and receiving corrective training. So what exactly is corrective training? Corrective training is a form of punishment in which you either failed an event or a task or failed to meet something to standard. And it's a form of punishment where we execute exercises basically in accordance with FM 7-22, which is your PRT, physical readiness training. So any physical readiness training exercise that's within that manual, we can execute 2 exercises per infraction. One upper extremity and one lower extremity. So if you really piss us off, we're gonna make sure that you exercise by the numbers. And by the numbers means that we're gonna go step by step, position by position for each exercise. And when we go to each count of that exercise, like if we're going to the 8-count push-up, we're gonna go to position 1 and we're gonna walk around and make sure that you are in the correct position and make on-the-spot corrections. Once we clear the on-spot corrections, we'll go to ready 2. Ready 3, ready 4, ready 5, ready 6, right? So we'll make it challenging for you. We'll be within regulation, but we'll make it work for us, not for you. So let's talk about fire guard in CQ. All throughout your training environment, and if you ever get deployed overseas, you will be assigned to fire guard and or CQ. So lights out is typically around 21:30 hours, which is 9:30 p.m. for you civilians, and wake up is usually around 0500, right, which is 5 a.m. So in between that time frame, you'll be required to conduct fire guard and CQ. Fire guard is for the safety of everyone that's sleeping in their bunks. You are there to wake them up if there's a fire or any type of emergency, and to conduct accountability throughout the night for each shift, checking to see if everyone's in their bunk or at least accounted for, meaning that they're on CQ, in the latrine, or so on and so forth. CQ is done typically on the ground level at the main entrance of the barracks, and the drill sergeant office, who's on staff duty for that night, is usually right around the corner, right in that general area. You are to answer the phones and to stop anyone who comes in and out of the building and to report it to the drill sergeant. You will be given special instructions at that time for anything that's outside of your spectrum. Typically, it'll be about one, worst case scenario, 2 hours per night for each time that you do this, which will happen at least once per week. So if we're doing fire guard or CQ for 1 hour a night, how much sleep do we get throughout Army Basic Training? You will get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep, with the exception of the nights that you conduct fire guard or CQ. Spend this time to actually sleep. When lights go out at 2130 hours at night, do not write letters. If you do, you must use a red lens on your flashlight. Lights are going out. Utilize this time to sleep. You have personal time between 21:30 and 21:30 hours in the evening. That is the time where you conduct personal hygiene and to write your letters. When lights go out, I strongly suggest that you go to sleep. I get this question asked all the time. Are there any days off in Army Basic Training? No, there are no days off in Army Basic Training. 7 days a week for 10 weeks. Sundays are generally a slower day. It is usually, typically an admin day for your drill sergeants, planning and preparing for the week ahead. Your drill sergeants won't mess with you until after 1400 hours. if you're religious or not, even if you're not religious, go to a religious service. During COVID, at least during yellow phase, the religious figure will come to a outdoor location nearby the barracks and conduct religious services outside. Once we get out of COVID, it will go back to going into the religious facility. With that being said, whether you go to religious services or not, you will be conducting barracks maintenance, cleaning, sanitizing, and all that good stuff within the barracks and the company area. If you don't go to church, that's what you'll be doing. If you do go to church and you come back to church, you'll still be doing barracks maintenance. So you might as well just go to your religious services and take a break from your drill sergeants at like 45 to 60 minutes at a time. That's typically how long your religious service will be. So you might as well get away from them for a little bit. You will not be able to nap or lay in your bunk and relax and chill and all that good stuff, right? All right, so once your bunk is made by like 05:30 hours or 0600 hours, for the rest of the day, it doesn't matter if it's Sunday or Saturday, you are not allowed to lay on your bunk or take a nap or anything like that. If you're in the back of the barracks, away from the main entrance to your barracks, you might be able to like hide underneath a bunk or something like that, but as soon as you hear Eddie's and the drill sergeant walks in, you best get up. And make sure you don't look like you got sleepy eyes and bags underneath your eyes like you've been taking a nap and stuff, right? So wake the hell up. So what is some of the training to be completed during yellow phase? And I'm gonna be honest with you, yellow phase is pretty boring. And it's gonna vary from unit location to unit location throughout the basic training sites to what actually gets done. But this will be a general overview of what you should expect during yellow phase. So essentially, your drill sergeant will be conducting PRT exercise by exercise for each set of workouts. So we have preparation drills, condition drills level 1 and 2, climate drills level 1, military movement drills 1 and 2, 4 for the core, hip stability drill, and your recovery drills. And they're going to go through each exercise, briefing each step. Step 1, step 2, step 3, so on and so forth, executing and thoroughly explaining to you how to do each exercise and demonstrate it. Once each exercise is explained to you, you will conduct and knock out a few repetitions of each exercise as a practical exercise. So each exercise will be explained and demonstrated by the numbers. Your AIs, your assistant instructors, which are your drill sergeants, will be walking around making on-the-spot corrections, perfecting your technique or lack thereof. So all throughout yellow phase and throughout your Army basic training, one day will be strength and mobility, the other day will be endurance and mobility. Strength and mobility days will be basically body weight or using equipment, essentially strength training. And on the opposite day, you'll be doing endurance, which is essentially cardio, running, sprinting, so on and so forth. And they will alternate all throughout your basic training experience. With the exception of days that you will do like the confidence course or ruck marches. Ruck march is like a fancy term for hiking with a heavy load. But you'll have a lighter load in the beginning, and as you progress throughout Army basic training, your load, your workload will get heavier and the distances will get further. Typically, you'll do the preparation drill and the hip stability drill on your ruck days and the days that you're about to do your confidence course and things of that nature. You will also be taught DNC or drill and ceremony. So you've already been taught your position of attention, positions while at the halt, and rendering the hand salute. Now you'll be taught how to fall into formation, how you get your proper distances, so on and so forth, how to dress right dress, at close intervals, dress right dress. I'm not gonna go through everything, but they're gonna teach you by the numbers for each DNC requirement. Just like they did for PRT, by the numbers, with practical exercise. At the beginning, or at least for yellow phase, there will be a no reply cadence when you're marching from point A to point B. Your drill sergeant will be sounding off with a cadence and or just simply saying left, left, left. Pretty boring stuff. Once you get past yellow phase, they'll start with the reply back cadences where you will respond back with the appropriate cadence. So once you are able to respond back with your drill sergeant, you will sound off with cadences. Cadences are what keeps you in step. So instead of saying the boring left, 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 they'll be like, everywhere I go. And then you'll say, everywhere I go, there's a drill sergeant there. There's a drill sergeant there. And they will keep the rhythm so you stay in step. So all throughout your yellow phase, so typically under a pre-COVID basic training experience, you would have classroom blocks of instruction For the most part, towards the beginning of your basic training experience, but they consolidated all the classroom environment classes that you would normally get throughout your basic training experience and condensed it into your first 2 weeks during yellow phase so that you can continue your training and finish on time in 10 weeks. So some of the blocks of instruction that you should expect to knock out in the first couple weeks of basic training during yellow phase is you'll learn about SHARP, Sexual Harassment Awareness and Reporting Procedures, which is essentially we have zero tolerance for any type of sexual harassment or assault. Don't do it, Pry. I mean, SHARP it's really serious. Like, you can't even joke around about it, to the point where if you have a perceived inappropriate photo on your cell phone or a calendar in your wall locker or something like that would be considered a SHARP violation and be processed as such. So take it seriously. You will also be briefed on the Army's equal opportunity. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, or Hispanic. In the military, at your rank level, everyone will be provided equal opportunity in all facets of the Army. You will also be taught how to handle your personal affairs, your personal finances, and all that good stuff. You will also be taught on the law of the land warfare, UCMJ, or Uniform Code of Military Justice. In the military, if you mess up and you break military law, unlike civilian law, you are guilty until proven innocent, whereas as a civilian, you are innocent until proven guilty. So even if you are cleared of your military law violation or what have you, it will still be in your record and will follow you all throughout your military career. So let's say you were accused of a SHARP violation. Although you were cleared of it, it'll state that in your record, but it will still be in your record that you were accused of a SHARP violation, for example. You will be taught proper nutrition while in the military and throughout your basic training experience. Eventually, when you do go to the chow hall, the food line will have various colors telling you if it's red, amber, or green. Green meaning it's the healthier option, whereas red is more of the fattier, more fast food, not as healthy food option. You will be briefed on showing pictures of sexually transmitted diseases. It's pretty gross, but yeah, expect that. You will also be taught about land navigation, how to read a map, read a compass, all that good stuff, and we'll do a practical exercise out in the field actually conducting in a group setting land navigation. You will be taught about the history of the Army heritage, along with the Army values, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage, and know how to express them in your own words. We use and teach the acronym LEADERSHIP. Learn it before going to basic training and know how to express it in your own words as previously described. You will also learn about weapons familiarization with various explosive devices from hand grenades to claymore mines, so on and so forth, the effectiveness of them and the purpose of each one to include smoke grenades and all that good stuff. You will learn basic rifle marksmanship. First of all, first thing that they'll teach you is the safety of using your weapon. Please do not call it a gun. We have no guns in the Army. We have weapons. The enemy has guns, but we have weapons. You will conduct classes on how to familiarize yourself with your assigned weapon, how to have and maintain muzzle awareness, pointing your weapon in a safe direction at all times, and how to hold and handle your rifle. You will be taught a functions check, how to clear your weapon, making sure it's on safe, and all that good stuff. You will be taught how to break down your weapon and put it back together. You will be taught the basic fundamentals of shooting your rifle, breathing, aiming, trigger squeeze, body position, all that good stuff to include your sight picture. If you've shot rifles before and you've developed bad habits, or if you have shot a rifle before, clear your mind. Have your bottle or cup half full and be willing to learn to allow the Army, allow us drill sergeants to coach you and teach you the Army way of doing things. Probably expect to do D&C with your rifle. Right shoulder arms, left shoulder arms, port arms, all that good stuff that goes along with your rifle in D&C, drill and ceremony. How long will these, because I get asked this all the time, how long will these COVID restrictions be in place? Because as of right now, there are no family days or in-person graduation ceremonies. And people want to know, when are we going back to business as usual? Because it robs each trainee their monumental, memorable moment, right? It's very impactful on graduation day. So we get it, we empathize with you, and it sucks, but I forecast that the COVID restrictions won't be lifted until probably no earlier than fall or winter of 2021 to early to mid 2022, depending on how effective this vaccine is. And hopefully the COVID positive rate curve goes down versus up. So as long as we're trending downwards, that will open up the possibility of reopening in-person graduations and family days. It sucks, but it is what it is. Now, there was a virtual town hall with Fort Sill, and I can't remember if it was the command sergeant major or if it was the general that was speaking on it, but he gave his personal opinion on when they will reintegrate family day and in-person graduations. And he's suspecting that late summer, early fall, providing that the vaccinations of COVID and the curve going downward, if that trends in that direction, it could come back as early as this late summer or fall of 2021. So let's remain positive, continue to do what we're supposed to do by wearing masks and socially distance and all that good stuff out in the civilian world. But, do your part, because the more effective and the more often that we do our part as citizens, the quicker we can go back to business as usual, or what the new business as usual will be. With that being said, do me a favor, drop your hashtag TEAMSWARTZ down in the comment section, but more importantly, like this video, smash it if that's something that you're into. It lets me know that you appreciate and like these tips that I'm providing for you. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Hold up, wait a minute, like this video and follow me on social, and while you're at it, go ahead and check out one of my other videos right over here. Just pick one. They're pretty cool. I mean, I liked it. I mean, I was in it. Spoiler alert. I teach you something. Just saying.